you guys. I'm so excited. All right, let's get right into this thing. Woo!
It's time for another On the Spot. On the Spot.
When you think of famous rivalries in IndyCar, what are the first few ones that come to mind, and which have been your favorite and why?
Probably everybody considers themselves a rival with like Santino Ferrucci, so that's I've always gotten along with him okay, but it seems to be the mood around the paddock sometimes of the full-time guys these days. So that's always kind of fun to watch.
Would you say you and Colin have a potential for a good, long-standing on-track rivalry, given your competitive rookie seasons?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot of respect for him. I don't like him very much. I think that's very clear. And I think he'd say the same thing about me. As far as someone that I'm not giving any room to, it'd be that guy.
If you were thinking of, Paul Tracy and Sebastian Bourdais, and more recently,
I think Sebastian Bourdais and Paul Tracy had like a pretty big rivalry, in the early 2000s.
I've watched IndyCar since I was 5, 6, when back then it was Sebastian Bourdais and Paul Tracy. That was like kind of my area, so I used to watch the punch-ups back there and all that kind of thing.
Paul Tracy and everybody, that was always entertaining.
I think of Paul Tracy and everyone else, and I think let's go with Paul Tracy and everyone else.
That seems to be the big answer.
For 1,000, yeah.
Paul Tracy versus everyone. That is what comes to mind.
That's like over half the field already told me too.
Yeah,
literally,
exactly.
I think, unfortunately, I probably make the top 10 with Paul Tracy, but I don't know. I never really paid much attention. That's never really what brought me or dragged attention to IndyCar for me.
When I was young, I did not watch it too much because it wasn't on TV in my home country.
Oh.
So I only know about AJ Foyt hitting Arie Luyendyk in the face. When I was young, Arie was already out of IndyCar, so I did not watch too much. I'm trying to watch as many as possible, like the old races on YouTube and everything.
Yeah.
You think of like AJ and Mario, and that was never like they weren't fighting each other like AJ and Arie were, but just in terms of being competitors and always wanting to beat each other, I think they really fueled each other a lot over the years.
I think it's always been really strong for Ganassi, I think, between kind of Andretti or Penske, those rivalries, and then I think people, fans, kind of have their own person that they cheer on, and then depending who you're racing through that season or whatever,
The Penske versus Ganassi, I think, is probably the bigger one. If you were to go away from driver to teams, that's been going on for so many years. Dixon versus Power, Newgarden versus Power, Newgarden versus Dixon. That's been around for a very long time. I think the Chevy versus the Honda rivalry is alive and well. I think we all want to beat all the Hondas, and the Hondas want to beat the Chevys.
I mean, the Penske-Ganassi rivalry as a whole is just interesting in general. I mean, all those drivers are top drivers. I couldn't pick, which one that would be rivaled against. It's just like a team thing, and I think that the fact that it's still ongoing today is like really, really cool. So, yeah, I think I wouldn't say any driver rivalries. I'd say as a team, like that rivalry is super cool.
I always think like Dario and Dixon, that was two very, very competitive drivers. You had AJ Foyt versus everyone. You had, the Andretti family, and the Foyt family. Obviously, that's a wild, wild rivalry there.
Oh boy, Andretti, Rahal.
Even then, you'd have, AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, and Rick Mears.
When I was coming up in the sport, I always liked Little Al and Michael. And you call it a rivalry because they were, but they were also, it was a friendly rivalry, right? And I mean, to this day, they remain friends, and they always liked one another. But they were sort of the young guns and the new guard, and it was fun watching that changing of the guard happening. That was really the one I remember most watching.
Just the personalities like the AJ and Mario in recent years Alex and Pagenaud's races at the 500. You know, like the year before my rookie year, that was a pretty crazy finish and all that. Watching that,
You know, there's a natural rivalry between like Colton and Pato, I think. Yeah, let's make that a rivalry.
These might not count as rivalries, but just races where it was like a duel to the end. You know, Emo and Al Unser Jr. with Al Unser Jr. crashing at the end.
A great rivalry with my grandfather and Al Jr. They were fighting for the 500 until the last lap. I was actually watching that race like 2 days ago, and I watched it again. It was just like, it's crazy how close that racing was, and the rivalry between Castroneves and Alex Palou. Today's race was one passing the other the whole race. That was last 6 laps was amazing. Palou passed and then Castroneves passed back. It was insane.
I think when Montoya came, I loved when he came. He was fearless, and he was winning everything first year, and people were telling him he was crazy, and he was like, man, I don't care. And I love that. Same when he went to Formula One. Afterwards, he took on Schumacher, who was the king of Formula One, and it was pretty cool to see.
For some reason, the Montoya Franchitti kind of rivalry in the late 90s, early 2000s really stands out to me. I remember that's when I was really, really getting into it and really following it closely, and those guys going at each other.
Probably for me, because I've watched it for a long time, but Will and Dario Franchitti, they were pretty, obviously they went toe-to-toe a fair bit.
I mean, Will and Dario had a good run, for 4 or 5 seasons there. It was kind of always them 1-2 in the championship, and they'd get into each other on track, and they'd take little jabs at each other in the media, kind of a little bit, So yeah, there were some good ones.
Think of Nigel Mansell and Mario Andretti. I think those guys had a fierce rivalry back in their day, and it was a bitter rivalry too. But even though I'm British, I was on Team Mario's side for sure.
I guess in the more sort of recent history of what we've been through, you just look at the guys that are up front consistently. When you had JPM and Elio and Scott, all of those guys, those are just like legends from within our sport, and they all sort of got along okay, so it's hard to really call them like hardcore rivalries.
All right, and that is it here. I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a great time in the pit, in the garage, all that fun stuff. See you guys next time. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. Later!